Welcome to CSM Talk. We're looking at our series of podcasts on how CSM is impacted by AI and how AI can help customer success managers punch above their weight. And today with me, I have a guest who's going to introduce themselves now.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks very much for having me. Specialize in a number of years and a number of roles in the tech B2B environment. Been fortunate enough to spend some time at some startups, some scale-ups, some more mature kind of technology businesses, as well as some kind of bigger companies. More recently, part of my career has been spent in the cybersecurity space, which is super interesting and a hugely growing space as well.
Well, thank you, Adam. Thanks for the introduction. So you're going to go through some use cases where, as a customer success manager, AI helps you, some of the things you think about, and some of the takeaways you've got through that. So, yeah, please take us through some of the use cases.
So the old world on the left-hand side. As we know, CS professionals, we're very overwhelmed with a lot of client, work, internal, external. It's a hugely, it's a job that I'm super passionate about. But as we know, there's always, not enough hours in the day to do what we want to do. So trying to replace that kind of manual grunt work and that feeling that actually you're just trusting your gut. That's where I think AI can really benefit. Humans are still participating. And I see that role for orchestration, right? And how do you make sure that humans are staying relevant, but utilizing AI? And it can help in three main areas. It's around like the proactivity. I really try and focus on being less in firefighting mode and just focusing my attention where clients scream the loudest, because I don't think that's scalable. But thinking, right, can I use AI to help lift some of the meeting notes and some of the actions, which are very high value work, but also high resource, right? They take time. You might have a 3-4 hour meeting and there's a load of notes and annotations and things that you want to kind of capture using kind of platforms like Granola, for example, or your co-pilots or things that like built into Zoom, just to kind of capture those notes and synthesize it and send out kind of follow-up comms, right? Like you're potentially saving 3 or 4 hours worth of work. So that's kind of a pain point one. Pain point two is around like the predictability. So what I was talking about before around trusting your gut. That's okay, but you've got a CRO that you're accountable for predicting revenue, and they want more than your gut. They want to understand how likely is it that your book of business is going to renew? What percentage uplift do you think you can expand your accounts to? Are there any known unknowns in the accounts? Unresponsiveness of a champion, or potentially is a exec sponsor moving to another business, and what could that mean for the account? So just trying to get more predictive analysis through AI, I think, can be a pain point two or use case two. And then the doing more with less, trying to do the efficiency piece and things like playbooks, QBRs, all the goodness of what we do in our day-to-day job. They take time, but trying to have that repeatability and scalability. So you've got a format structure that can be kind of plugged and played. Depends how final point, it depends how your team's structured, and we could talk about account segmentation to length, right? But do you structure your team as a pre-sales kind of onboarding team, and you only focus, the CS people on that specific point in the life cycle, rather than giving someone a huge book of business where someone could be launching, someone could be renewing for the 5th year, and the other 29 or 28 could be everything in between. So maybe you have more specialty within either by kind of life cycle or even by industry, right? Like there's always ways to slice it and dice it.
Well, the other thing, sorry, not to carry on, but another really interesting use case that comes up with this, that now you mention this in terms of segmentation, is you may have a team that does lower touch CS, which is like they have 100 accounts, and somebody who's enterprise, let's say 10 accounts. But you may come across with these people who've got 100 accounts, situations where they need interventions and specialist help. So they bring in somebody from the enterprise team for ad hoc pieces of work. You don't have a more fluid segmentation, where for things that are on track and not looking like they're going to massively churn or there's any risk, you have a low touch team working those. But where there are issues that need something to get something over the hump to get a renewal done, you can bring in on an ad hoc basis somebody a bit more specialist expertise.
Let me just head on to the next one. I won't spend too much time on this, but I think of just like AI workflows rather, how they can align with your life cycle. This is just one, particular snapshot of a life cycle, from kind of pre-sales to onboarding to kind of enablement, and I think, you know, maybe looking at through this kind of bird's eye view lens, it allows you to kind of identify, right, where are the points of my customer life cycle which are kind of, you know, high resource. They take me a lot. They're but still kind of high impact, right? So they take a lot of time, but they also they have a high impact and give me the biggest bang for my buck. And maybe this will allow you to, or others maybe consuming this, prioritize maybe where to start, because it can feel overwhelming otherwise. And this is kind of how I've been trying to kind of identify where I think AI can really help on the journey. Because ideally, you probably want it to touch all different parts of the journey, but I think you probably need to start with a bit more of a bird's eye view to kind of identify, right, where's the first place I want to hit, and then kind of go down that pecking order in terms of prioritization.
Of course, the other thing that potentially can help with is maybe identifying those areas where the greatest churn risk is introduced into the life cycle. So when you're proactively looking at this and going, well, actually, where do I need my efforts more, might be at the activation stage.
A couple of ways that I've been using AI, and there's two use cases. The first use case is around success planning. It's like a hygiene element for any CS professional, right? It's like, if you don't know where you're going, you know, you need to kind of position that North Star to the client, because otherwise they'll turn around in 6, 12, 18, 24 months. What were the goalposts? How do we know we achieved success? So this is the charter that you would have with any, you know, I'm telling every, you know, music to your ears, to, you know, to all your listeners that would know this. But I think also success planning can feel, right, how do I distill everything that my client wants into maybe 3 goals, right? And also, how do I get that information from a sales team who maybe wrote a, dare I say it, half decent win report or handover, or we didn't really have a handover, or I took this account from another person, they've left the business. There could be all a plethora of reasons why, you know, maybe you don't have such a comprehensive knowledge bank of you know, what feeds into the success plan. So I've kind of positioned a very, you know, high level example tech stack of Slack. You might have your client meetings on there. Pendo, you might have your data analytics, or Mixpanel, or PlanHat. There's a few, you know, providers out there. Chorus or Gong for your call recordings, and maybe Churn Zero or Salesforce, for example, for the central CRM. That can feel overwhelming because you can have 4 or 5 different platforms. They're not speaking to each other. They're in silos. But how do you aggregate that data and distill that into 3, 4 lines, or 2, 3 bullet points for the OGSMT framework, which is objective, goal, success, measure, timeline, right? And then how do you then like relay that to the client? So that's the problem. The solution that I find is you can put that into AI, and you can understand, right, you know, based on the information you have, what would you say these goals are? And you should have a good indication. I wouldn't like rely on AI doing your homework. You should know. You could, even if you know it, you could say, right, how do I make these goals more concise, or how do I put some metrics based on these typical benchmarks based on my client, or based on my function, or based on my product that you know is impactful for other clients. So eventually what you want to come out, the output of the sausage machine, is you put all this data in. The output is you've got a fairly comprehensive kind of business objectives. So what's that client trying to achieve? 3 goals with a couple of strategies on each goal, and then some like measurement of success. So, you know, in 6, 12, 18, 24 months, when renewal comes up, you've got these framework for success that you can fall back on. But also, like, throughout the QBRs, you would find that, okay, we've achieved goal 1, right, great. Client, can you sign this off? Great. Or we're 70% through, and to achieve the other 30%, we need to do this. So for me, success plans are your holy grail, and AI just can help sharpen it up and just make it a bit more refined.
And of course, bringing inputs from different areas of the business. So in a way that you can't do if you're meeting people personally, is the old way of doing it. I spoke to this person, they said this was important, we're measuring this. I have to speak to another person. With this, you can potentially go across all different types of data sources and find things at the technical level, the operational level, the more strategic level, and start aggregating them in and share this with the customer and go, look, you know, your technical people are saying this is a success criteria and what's important. Are you in line with that? Your users are saying this at their level. This is what's important to them. And at the sort of business strategy KPI level, here's what we're hearing from some of your department leads. So it's a good way of being proactive, of going back to an economic buyer and saying, this is what we're hearing is what our product gives value to you on. Can you start validating this? And how's this going to build up the business case for you renewing with us?
This should be signed off by the client before you start the work in the project phase. And then once they've committed to that, they're accountable and they've got ownership of that, the exec buyer or the sponsor or the medic, the economic buyer, the medpic kind of terminology you used. Then this should follow the customer life cycle. So they've signed off on the work. This is what we're achieving. We're aligned on the North Star, so there's no kind of scope creep. And then, like you said, this is the pathway for renewal, for expansion. Because if in 6 months, 12 months time, they said, actually, we didn't want to do that. Why have we done that? Well, then you've been doing a load of work for the wrong reasons. You've been swimming really, really hard and working really hard, but not in the right direction. So 100%, this is your framework for future progress and growth and expansion.
And always something you can come back to revise.
Clients aren't going to proactively put this together. They're going to rely on you to put this together. So you need to connect the dots. You need to connect the dots and do the hard work for them. And they need to see it very plainly in black and white. And also, I would prioritize, right, well, actually, goal 3, actually, that's more important because of X, Y, Z. Can we butt that up the pecking order? How long can we, there's a milestone for that achievable in Q3, hypothetically. Yes, Mr. Client. No, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client. You get the picture, right? So you framing it for them, let them see it in black and white, and let them reorder it or reshape it or rehash it. This might go through 1 or 2 drafts, right? Before it finally gets signed off, and then you can start the race, right? I'll go to use case 2, which is around kind of value realization. I think every CSM is going to be feeling the pain, which is like, how do I know that my product or my service software gives value to my client? And as we know, every software now is being kind of more scrutinized based on the value that it has in the business and the price that it costs that business around procurement, and the finance team says, so you need to kind of relay, right, well, this is why you bought it. This justifies a reason why we want to expand it or renew it, or do something maybe different with the licensing, for example, add different service packages or whatever that might be. And the value piece is without those metrics, you will not find it easy to get a renewal. I think that's probably a very blatant, blunt way of putting it. So the way I've been thinking about value realization and leveraging AI is around the pain points, scraping all that pain points, which is should be the reasons why they bought initially, what were they struggling to achieve, and what were the kind of hard metrics on that. So did it take them more time? Did it cost them more money? Did it cause bottlenecks in the business? All that kind of pain that you're scraping, and then mapping that to personas and stakeholders. So like you said last slide, Kevin, your exec maybe was feeling this pain. Okay, as a result of your solution, has this impacted this, and how can we measure that and put in some hard metrics on that for that person? This is how they use the platform, but also this is anecdotally, maybe they've done an audit and it's saved them 2 days a week, for example, right? That can be attributed to real, genuine value. You have to kind of go sniffing out for this. This doesn't come in your face. And you have to kind of ask discovery questions. And I think that's another way AI can be used. And the way I would demonstrate it is maybe a bit more aesthetically pleasing than this, which is highlight before and after metrics. So before you bought our platform, these are your problems, and this is how long things were taking, or this is how much things were costing, or this is how inefficient things were. As a result of implementing our solution, this is what we've done differently, and here's the uplift. So it might be percentages uplift, it might be numerical uplift. It doesn't really you want some hard metrics. And I think by kind of aggregating the pain and the personas and positioning that, you can get some really sharp kind of value realization that can go to into a board pack and go straight to the procurement or CFO or CRO and say, here's a 1-pager on why we need to renew X solution. And that can be very punchy and straight to the point. So a couple of ways to get in touch. Obviously LinkedIn. I've actually literally just started a new newsletter called Digital Brain, which you can happily subscribe to. And I'll definitely be touching on kind of AI as well as other kind of more CS fundamentals and all the kind of goodness around our go-to-market industry. So yeah, a couple of ways to get in touch if your users or listeners would like to get in touch.
Fantastic. So Adam, thank you so much for being the guest on CSM Talk.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.